Today's episode is brought to you by the Frankenmuth Convention and Visitors Bureau. Come plan your vacation at frankenmuth.org. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Call of Leadership podcast, where we talk to those in our Michigan community who answered the call of leadership. We'll hear their stories and get their advice so that we can be better leaders for ourselves, our families, and our community. I am your host, Cliff Duvenois, and today we've got the unique privilege of talking to the man who is in charge, basically, of the Zenders of Frankenmuth family business. They seem to have their fingers in a lot of different pies. This would be the CEO, Al Zehnder.
Welcome.
Al, how are you?
I'm doing great, Cliff. Thanks for being here today and coming to Frankenmuth. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, well, if there's one thing I love, it's definitely coming to Frankenmuth. So tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up.
I grew up in Frankenmuth. I mean, I was born and raised here. I was born and raised in this industry. I started at 14 years old and in the kitchen. So I started on the hot line. We call it. It's where we dish all of our hot food. And I worked just about every position within the organization, except I was never a server. When I was coming through the business, it was even pre-male server days. So now we have about a 50-50 mix of male and female servers, but never did that. But I worked as a bartender, all the positions in the front and the back of the house, even in the accounting as I grew and went through college, worked in the accounting function. So I've done just about everything within the restaurant business. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I want to make sure that I go back and explore that in just a little bit. Where did you go to college?
I went to Valparaiso University in Valparaiso, Indiana. It was as far away as I could get with my father's blessing, and it was a great experience. A small private school in northwest corner of Indiana. Yeah.
What did you study when you were there?
I was going for a double major. My major is actually sociology, but I was just an inch away from getting another major in business. But I'd been there for 4.5 years, and I knew my dad needed help back here, so I came back in 1976, and I've been here ever since.
What attracted you to go into sociology?
You know, it spoke to me about having to work with people and understanding people, and that's really what the hospitality industry is all about. It's about working with people, and I found that in college, I took the classes that I really felt that I was learning something. I loved marketing classes. I loved the whole social aspect of the sociology curriculum that we went through, and I could really apply it here. I mean, accounting is accounting, and I always felt kind of bored in accounting, but I felt more energized when I got into the more, I'd say, the creative end of business, and for me, marketing and the sociology courses were really what turned me on at school.
Excellent. And you made a comment about how when after about 4.5 years of school, you decided that you needed to come back because your father needed help. And we're talking about Eddie Zehnder.
Eddie Zehnder, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Eddie Zehnder was my dad. He was, I'd say the other half of that business relationship was Tiny Zehnder. It was sort of a match made in business heaven. Tiny was across the road at the Bavarian Inn, and my dad, Eddie, ran Zenders, and they remained friends, and of course they were brothers, traveled together, and they taught us a lot about business and, what's important about business, what's not important about business, and they never argued about a dime, and they built these two businesses together, individually, but yet together. And
right.
There were really three prongs to three legs to the stool of Frankenmuth tourism. That was Eddie Zehnder, Tiny Zehnder, and Wally Brunner, who developed Brunner's Christmas Wonderland. Yeah.
And that's really good. And I know I've said this before, but I want to circle back to that. But before we jump into that, what I would love to do is I would really like to take a trip back in time and talk about when Zenders first started. And actually, it wasn't Zenders.
No.
This was the
Exchange Hotel, and we trace our roots to 1856. So we go back a long time. That's pre-Civil War days. So
yes.
In 1856, that's just 11 years after Frankenmuth was founded, the Exchange Hotel was built. And it went through a number of different owners. And in 1908, it was rebuilt. It was called the New Exchange Hotel. And if you look at the exterior of our building, that center portion that is in between our north and south wings, still we're sitting in part of the original structure as it was in 1908. And it went through a number of owners from 1908 until 1928, when my grandfather purchased it in December of 1928. And of course, like every restaurateur, first thing he did was remodel the place,
Right.
And he put on a a different front, so the big pillars that you see on the front. He was a fan of George Washington, and so he modeled it after Mount Vernon. And I was going through a Smithsonian magazine some time ago, and there was a story in there about George Washington and Mount Vernon, and I flipped the page, and I almost took my breath away because I'm looking at Mount Vernon, and I went, my gosh, the detail that my grandfather put on the front of this building and how it matched Mount Vernon was pretty remarkable. And so there had to be some research. I mean, if you think back in 1928, I don't know how you did the research then, if you go to a library or whatever it is. And we opened then on Mother's Day of 1929, and we served 312 people at $1 a piece on Mother's Day, and we always looked at Mother's Day as sort of our Founders Day. And so it took off from there. Probably wasn't a worse time to start a business than 1929.
The Depression.
I mean, you're on the doorstep of the Depression. Of course, Prohibition was in full swing. And in the latter years of Prohibition, my grandfather and Herman Fisher across the street, which was an operating business called Fisher's Hotel, were arrested by federal agents for serving beer to an agent that had come all the way up here from Detroit. And I don't know why they picked Frankenmuth. I don't know why they picked Zenders and what was then Fisher's. But between my grandfather, William Zender Sr., and Herman Fisher, they received the two largest fines ever levied during Prohibition, which is pretty remarkable when you think. I mean, you had these rum runners in Detroit, you had Al Capone in Chicago, but the two largest fines were levied right here in Frankenmuth, Michigan during Prohibition. And not only that, they had to agree to smash their bars. And so federal agents came in and destroyed their bars. My grandfather was fined $5,000 and Herman Fisher was fined $8,000.
Which is a lot of money back then.
It's a lot of money. And we survived that. And after Prohibition, of course, and you get through the early 1940s, you're going to World War II. So my dad and a number of his brothers, they went off to war and left my grandmother and my grandfather back here to run the business. But after the war, it really took off. They came back, and Detroit was putting America on wheels. Tourism started in Michigan. People were traveling, and we really captured that traveling guest as they were coming up from Detroit, coming through Frankenmuth, and that was really kind of the genesis. And people started to recognize the value of the traveling public, and it really, I think, dawned on Frankenmuth, and certainly I think in our family that, boy, there's something here. And as we expanded and as we tried different things, it just seemed to work. And I don't know that there was any grand plan, but I think that they were opportunists and entrepreneurial in their spirit, and they took advantage of this. And and then as things progressed in the 1950s and 60s, and runners came online, and then other little shops along Main Street, and the chamber was always very, very supportive, and everybody was in sort of lockstep to grab this and seize this opportunity. In 1959, we were still operating as same business, and we felt that there probably should be some differentiation between Zenders and Fishers. And the early architectural change to the Bavarian architecture came in 1959, and that grand opening of what was then renamed the Bavarian Inn, there was a huge party, a grand opening, and that was the beginning of the Bavarian Festival, which continued. Well, it was canceled this year because of the pandemic, but like everything else. But then it just took off. And the Bavarian Festival was held every year, and that really grew, and it was one of Michigan's earliest festivals. Now there's every little town has a festival, but the Bavarian Festival was one of the very, very early ones, along with the Holland Tulip Festival. And that grew again, and I think people saw the opportunity and the impact of festivals. And gosh, this is really an attractor. And so that happened, and as our businesses grew, and we really grew during the 1970s, our whole lower level, 1970s and 80s, our whole lower level of shops and dining spaces, and our bakery, called Zender's Marketplace, where we sell our Tier 1 products. Our smaller cafe, Z Chef's Cafe, is down there. That expansion all happened in the 80s. In addition to getting into golf, we got into the golf about 1984 or so, and it's a small, little sleepy 9-hole golf course, Frankenmuth Golf and Country Club, and I didn't know anything about golf, and we didn't know what we were getting into, but we got into golf, and that's really when it really started. We didn't start it, but the golf boom in Michigan was starting. It was these championship courses like the Bear and all the courses that surround Gaylord. I mean, people were seeing that there's an opportunity here. I mean, there's an opportunity for golf. And a year later, we got into lodging. We bought a small hotel just south of us by Bronner's was then called the Bavarian House Motel. And we ran that for a number of years. We shut the golf course down for about 18 months. And as we had acquired land to expand to 18 holes, and we took a position that we wanted to really raise the bar, and we opened the Fortress in 1992, renamed it the Fortress, and it's really a gorgeous championship level golf course, and place a high priority on the maintenance of that facility with, immaculate greens, tees, and fairways. It's a tough course, but it's fun. I was out there not too long ago. It's gorgeous. And about 15 years ago, we took another look at how do we want to position ourselves in lodging, and the Great Wolf Lodge organizations and some of these facilities we're looking at indoor water parks as a draw for lodging, and we researched that tirelessly and figured out, gosh, this is something I think that really fits into our market. We had shifted our marketing a bit to really focus on families.
Yes.
And our general theme that developed in about the 1990s was we really wanted to be a 4-season family vacation destination. That was sort of the overarching goal. And we looked at the indoor water park industry as something that really fit. And it would also, we anticipated that we could introduce a whole new generation of diners back to Zender's restaurant by selling packages and getting a whole new generation of people introduced to the family style chicken dinner.
Right.
So we did that, and it was just a fabulous addition to our facility when we added our first phase, and now I think it's 5 or 6 years ago we added the phase 2, which we call Atrium Park, which is a completely retractable roof over the water park. And then 2 years ago we went back to phase 1 and worked with our vendor that developed that first park for us, we call it Splash Park, and put a retractable roof over that as well. Completely tore the roof off, and then put a retractable roof on. Then it's just really changed the character of that facility.
I bet.
And it's just a great family venue, and it's been very, very successful for us.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. One of the things that I was doing during the research for this podcast, when I took a look at the Zenders restaurant, and then there's the hotel, then you've got Splash Village, and then you have the golf course. And one of the things that popped up into my mind is that really is a family experience. If you need a place to stay, you got a hotel to stay at. If you're hungry, here's a restaurant you can go to. You got Splash Village for the kids. If the adults need to get away, you've got a golf course over here. So it's interesting to hear you talk about it being a destination.
Yeah, and it's families really appreciate that. One thing we noticed that we'd stay at a Great Wolf Lodge, and they're a great facility. I mean, and
Sure.
They're sort of the granddaddy of them all. I mean, they kind of started the whole thing. But we recognized that just as a parent, I wanted to get out of the place. If I'm staying there 2 or 3 days, you're kind of at that facility. And we thought, I think we have an opportunity here to introduce people not only to Zenders, but to Frankenmuth. And we have a shuttle, a complimentary shuttle that takes people anywhere that they want to go in town. And the guest has really responded to that. So we have a very unique setting in Frankenmuth, and a very unique property. We're the only indoor water park hotel that has 2 individual parks, both with retractable roofs, which now is a tremendous opportunity for us, because when the roofs are open, we are classified as an outdoor facility. So we can we can be open with our roofs retracted and our sidewalls up.
And you said something. You said something interesting about the shuttle, and I would like to go back and talk about this, because in doing all my interviews around Frankenmuth, the one theme that that I hear that recurs is between, and you mentioned before, Eddie, Tiny, and Wally, was that it wasn't just so much an aspect of I'm going to focus on my business and build my business. It was, I'm going to focus on my business, but I'm going to focus on the community as well. So it wasn't just, let's just promote, German, whatever it is, for the restaurant. But there's a lot of influences that you can see just driving through Frankenmuth of, the Zehnder family, of the Bronner's family, and like what you just said, it looks like that has obviously translated down into the generation now that is running, both of these restaurants. How important is that you think about it in terms of not just a business, but as a community?
It's critical, and it's actually it's part of our vision. I have this little card that we always carry. It's our mission and vision card, and on one side is the mission of our company, and the other side is the vision of our company. And the fourth bullet point on the vision is leadership and support in our community and industry. I expect it. It was one of the things that my dad taught us is you have to give back. And like I say when I talk with our new employees in our orientation is, it's just a basic expectation that we were told. I don't care if you are a Little League coach. I don't care if you're a member of Rotary, be involved in your church, Boy Scout, Girl Scout leader. Find an avenue to give back to your community or to your industry. It was one of the things that my parents taught us, give back. And they were very involved in all kinds of, boards and church groups and, that kind of thing. And,
Sure.
And certainly with our chamber and that message was also loud and clear that Tiny gave to his family and that Wally Brunner gave to his, and that has transcended the generations. So and now we have some fourth generation family members that they're giving back, and it's just a basic expectation. And I just think it's part of leadership. Is you want to provide, if you've been successful in your business, help organizations to be successful. The more successful organizations that we have in our community, the more successful we are. And I need a strong chamber. I need a strong school board. I need a strong city council. The better that we all are collectively, the better we're going to be as a community. So
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just something that is part of our DNA.
It is.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, when we come back, Al Zender is going to share the best piece of advice his father gave him, and also what is he doing to cultivate leaders in his organization that's going to help set them up for success in the future. But first, let's take a moment to thank our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Frankenmuth Convention and Visitors Bureau. German architecture, chicken dinners, and the world's largest Christmas store are just the beginning. Frankenmuth is quickly becoming known for so much more than chicken and Christmas. From trendy dining to timeless horse-drawn carriage rides, kayaking to adventure parks, ballparks, water parks, regular parks, sweet Moses, there's a lot to do in one trip to Frankenmuth. Visit the must-sees of Little Bavaria, then grab your crew and find something new waiting to be discovered. Pack a picnic blanket, order takeout from your favorite place, and let your kids delight in exploring while soaking up the little moments in life. Join the generations of families in our hotels during the 175th anniversary season in 2020. The perfect road trip awaits you. Start planning your unforgettable family vacation at frankenmuth.org. Now, back to the show. And that was something with my interview with Mayor Ackerman was probably one of the biggest responsibility any leader has in the community is cultivating other leaders. And of course, leadership is about bringing out the best in people. So I absolutely love it. On the topic of leadership, your father, Eddie, ran Zenders of Frankenmuth for a number of years and then just transitioned over to you. What was that transition like?
Well, it was long.
It usually is.
It's a long transition, and as my parents got older, my dad had some health issues, and so some of it was natural, some of it wasn't. I had two sisters that were in the business with me, Bill Parlberg, who was in the business, and we quickly formed a pretty solid leadership group. A lot of my time was spent organizing. My dad was just a great entrepreneur, not real good at organizing. So there was a lot of pieces to pick up along the way.
Sure.
And we did a lot of the sort of the nuts and bolts stuff of a business, of organizing like a human resource department, getting all of our systems and procedures and protocols, sort of our standard operating procedures in line.
Right.
And that took some time. And time is a great way to transition in. And when you understand that when somebody has put their life into something, often it's hard to just sort of step away and say, I'm done, and here you go. And that was kind of like my dad. And my mom was very involved in the business as well. She was very supportive. Sadly, they both passed, but just some of the things that they taught us, I think, helped in that transition. And there was no reason to be pushy with that. I mean,
right.
I loved my parents being around. So it was long, but it was natural. It felt natural, just even in retrospect.
Sure. What was one piece of advice that your father, Eddie, gave you that you still use to this day?
Oh, geez. I would say probably the one thing that we use is don't argue over a dollar. And nothing's more important than you being able to come over to my house for dinner. And if we had an argument that day, let's just clear it up. Don't carry it with you. And just, there's nothing so important about business that you should argue about it, nor should it come in the way of your family. Or your relationship with your family. I always like to say that the best thing about a family business is you get to work with your family. The worst thing about a family business is you get to work with your family. So you sort of have to keep that in perspective, and we love each other. And
sure.
If I had a disagreement over something with one of my sisters and I'm invited over to their house for dinner that night, it's resolved. So we don't carry it with us. And I think that's really helped. And, just keep the faith, the faith that we gave you, and the moral leadership, and do it right. Just be a good person, and all that corny stuff that seems to really kind of work for us. So
yeah, okay,
works.
What I'd like to do is talk about the menu. What influences for the Zenders restaurant? What influences your decisions about what you're going to put on the menu or the offerings that you have?
The family style chicken dinner is really the flagship on our menu, and we look all the time. In fact, this morning we have a every other month we have a culinary committee meeting where we talk about the menu and what our offerings are. And we just have a basic philosophy and our guest has told us this, is we want to put the best items on our menu, the best products on our menu at a fair price. And so we're always looking at tweaking little things. We'll try monthly specials. We'll try additional add-ons to the family-style chicken dinner. So you have a basic family-style chicken dinner, but if you want to add on some like a Bavarian sausage or Wiener Schnitzel, we're always looking at how can we improve those products. We'll tweak something, and then we'll keep tweaking it, and we'll improve something, and we'll try to improve the improvement. And we're always looking for new products. And our vendors will bring us new products. They'll say, hey, I've got this new item. We try not to be too trendy. We try to be more American fare.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
We have some German items on our menu. We try to appeal to the different dietary requirements. Vegetarian items, gluten-free items. It seems that every day in our industry we're dealing with allergies, and so
yes.
We're very conscious of that. My youngest daughter has a nut allergy, so I'm very conscious of that, and how we educate our staff, and how we educate our chefs, and what procedures do we use that maybe can mitigate some of that.
Yes.
And that's very important in our industry. There's a whole slew of products that are coming out as plant-based. The Impossible Burger you've seen. There's new plant-based shrimp that are coming out. There's all kinds of stuff. We're very cautious on getting too far ahead of ourselves or over our skis just because it happens to be out there.
Right.
We'll try it internally. We'll have our employees try it. We'll talk about it at our culinary committee meetings. But I found that the guest just likes a good, honest, well-prepared meal, and they're willing to pay a fair price. So it's a constant process. I mean, it's a daily process. And I grew up in the back of the house. I love the cooking process.
Right.
And that's where you'll find me more often than not, like on a busy Saturday night. I just love standing out in the kitchen. We have completely revamped our vegetable. We try to be more farm-to-table with vegetables and using fresher vegetables, so whole carrots, Brussels sprouts. So today I think we have beets, not one of my favorites, but introducing different. Where can we maybe make a difference, or where can we look different or fresher or healthier? And our meal tends to be a little starchy, so we're trying to introduce other items that aren't quite so heavy, and it's just a constant daily process.
One of the things I was impressed with before this interview, when I was downstairs in guest services waiting, is somebody called in and spoke to the receptionist down there and said, we've got a party coming in tomorrow night. One of the members of our party has a garlic allergy. So your assistant, without hesitation, said, when you come in, just let your server know, and they'll make sure not to include those spices on there and stuff. And I thought, because I understand, being able to produce food at scale for the number of people that you've got coming in, but the sheer fact that your restaurant would actually take the time to prepare your family style chicken dinner without garlic for this one guest, I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, you have to be nimble with those types of things because I don't know why it is. I'm not trying to figure it out, but there seems to be an allergy or some sensitivity to just about everything, whether it's garlic or certainly nut-based allergies, lactose intolerant, all kinds of things. So we try to be as responsive to every guest that we possibly can. I think we've done a pretty fair job. And if we need to remove an item, we'll try to do that. We introduced a non-fried chicken item over the last about 18 months. So now you can have a rotisserie chicken, family style, if that's what you like. It's been very popular. So or grilled chicken. We also have a char grilled chicken if you like that as well. So constant, Cliff. Always trying something new. Got to stay ahead of it.
Got to stay ahead of it. Got to try something new.
Yep.
So Zenders of Frankenmuth, obviously this is a multi-generational family business that is coming up here. And I know we talked briefly about the transition from your father, Eddie, to you with your kids now coming up inside of the family business. What are some of the things that you're putting in place and that you're doing to basically set them up for success, to keep your family legacy not only going but thriving?
Yeah. We're a little bit more purposeful. Before this whole COVID-19 thing started, we had a pretty regular, about every 3-month meeting with a small group of the third generation that would just get together and talk about how we're going to focus on succession, because we're all getting older. I mean, it's going to happen, and the worst thing you can do is just everybody falls over dead, and you leave a bunch of the next generation that really don't have an idea of where their place is. We've tried to. With the fourth generation there, I have 2 of my older children in the business, and my one sister has 2 in the business, and my other sister has 1. So there's 5. And we have literally just sat them down and said, where do you feel comfortable? Where do you feel comfortable in the business? And they all are gravitating to where their comfort zone is, internally. And it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So my daughter is over at Splash Village as the general manager. My son is in the back of the house as one of our back of the house managers. My nephew is over at the Fortress, running the Fortress, along with the golf professional over there. My niece is is in our sales department and does group sales for us. And my other nephew is in our human resource department in an administrative role. So we want them to understand the business, because once you get into a leadership position and maybe you're outside of Splash Village and in a different role, maybe in a more of an executive, a higher level executive role, you have to know the operations in this business. You have to know the nuts and bolts. You can't make culinary decisions, if you don't know the culinary process about how to cook something, or how to check somebody into a room, or what's important in terms of the touch points right now over at Splash Village. So we just try to get them as operationally focused right now as possible, so when they get into as time goes on, they understand what makes a business tick. So it's a constant conversation, and it's comforting when you have family, and it's comforting that they're coming into business, but it's also really comforting that they know what they're doing.
Sure. Now, do you think, going back to something you mentioned before, do you think coming in here and starting as a line cook and just basically doing all the jobs in the house, do you think that's made you a more effective CEO?
Yes, because I understand what it means to what it feels like on a 110-degree day, and you're working over a chicken fryer, or if need be, if I'm here on a Saturday night and we're running low on breaded chicken, I know how to do it, and I'll do it. And we want our managers, and certainly the family members, you need to get your hands dirty. You need to get your hands dirty. My daughter we got a little short of housekeepers, and she was in the room making beds.
Cleaning side by side with them.
I mean, you got to do it. And, my son in the back of the house does the same thing. I mean, whatever needs to be done needs to be done. Nick over at the golf course, my nephew, was mowing greens, in the spring because not every week we couldn't get the people back, or raking bunkers. So it is important because I think it makes you a bit more of an empathetic leader, and sympathetic, and it's hard work. I mean, it's just plain hard work, and so it's important. My youngest daughter, she just turned 15. She wants to work in back of the house in the bakery. She loves to bake, and so we're trying to make that happen for her as well. So, yeah, I mean, my dad always said, he never said it, but you knew it, is that there's no golden road to the top, and you got to put your time in.
Sure. You definitely do.
Yeah.
This is actually then, and going back to, and I know you mentioned Bill Parlborg before. This is actually something where he came in. He started off as a dishwasher. That's correct. Yeah. And now he's president.
Yeah. Co-op student, went to Frankenmuth High School, came down here and was working co-op on weekdays and weekends all through high school. He was a standout athlete at Frankenmuth High School as well. And when he graduated, my dad offered to put him through school. He went to Northwood University, where he graduated, and we have a simple contract. It's a handshake, and it's you go to 4 years of school, just give me 4 years when you're done. And there's no obligation.
Got the better deal of that.
Yeah, no obligation after that. And those 4 years turned into I don't know, I think he's been here 45 years, and it's just a great success story. But again, he started out in the back of the house as a dishwasher, did just about everything in the back of the house, and he was when he graduated from college, we opened up the lower level, and he was our retail manager for a lot of years. We relocated our bakery into the lower level, and he was really took that project, and we traveled all over and bought all this bakery equipment of new ovens and all kinds of stuff, and he led the charge there. And through his efforts, we were named Retail Bakery of the Year, and I can't remember the year. I think it was early 1980s, and then did a bunch of other things, managerial, worked in accounting for a while, HR for a while, and you just sort of grow up in the business, and you see leadership ability, and it's rewarded with more opportunity. So he's just a great example of what we are all about. He's just like family. I mean, it's been a great ride with Bill.
Excellent.
Yeah.
For our audience, if they want to connect with you, if they want to follow you online, where's the best places for them to go?
Right on our website, www.zenders.com. We try to keep it updated as quickly as possible. We have 2 people in our social media that deal with it each and every day, and all of our up-to-date information is right there. So it's the best place to see what's happening at Zenders.
And for our audience, we'll have those links in the show notes down below. Al, it's been great having you on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been
really
fun.
Enjoyed this conversation.
Sure. Hey, circle back anytime.
Hey, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, then subscribe to our email newsletter. When you subscribe, you'll get new episode announcements. You'll get all kinds of great behind-the-scenes information on upcoming guests. Plus, you'll receive special offers from our guests and partners that you can only get through the email newsletter. Subscribing is quick, easy, and best of all, it is free. Just go to callofleadership.com/email, type in your email address, and you're done. Once again, that's callofleadership.com/email. I'll catch you in the next episode.